right, we are live and welcome back to another episode of Misaligned, the podcast where we have real conversations, no safety nets, no fluff, no political correctness. We talk about the things that no one talks about because they can't, and because we want to, and we because we have to, essentially. So I'm AK. Today we're talking about masculinity, real masculinity, not the watered down version that society has been trying to sell us for quite a while. I think the real fundamental question here is masculinity toxic, or have we just forgotten what true leadership, strength, responsibility look like? So we're breaking it down today. Kick us off properly. I'm handing over to the perfectly eloquent and structured Yemi to run us through how we go through this episode. But it might be worth starting off with, as part of this handover, with a question. When we hear the word masculinity, what comes to mind across our minds here? Power, is it something that's powerful, or is it something that's a problem? Yemi, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for the extremely generous compliment, AK. Yeah, I think that's pretty generous. Welcome back, everyone. Farouk, Jab, and our listeners. Yes, we are talking about masculinity today, and I think it'd be helpful if we can look at it in the context of people who've kind of moved from one culture mostly into another, and just think about what that term means to us. I suppose what comes to mind when I begin to think about it is there's a lot of sort of new wave people who are trying to, in their own words or actions, claim back what they term as masculinity. And one of the persons that come to mind is someone like Andrew Tate, for example. So again, my sort of thinking is what is it about that phenomenon that we think about, and perhaps we can firstly, as Ike suggested, define masculinity. When we use that word, what comes to mind? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Or is it just a thing that can be, depending on how it's portrayed or sort of operationalized, good or bad? Jab, do you want to have a go first?
No, well, yes, I want to have a go first, but it's just, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
I can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay. So I'm going first, really just to declare my ignorance. I don't know much about the subject, and I'm here to learn. I'm aware of the term toxic, masculinity, but I don't quite know the politics of it, as it were. So I really am. I'm going to be learning from you guys.
Okay, perhaps AK can set the ball rolling then. So masculinity, what does that? How does that term strike you when it?
Yeah, I mean, and this was an interesting one because I think particularly masculinity has been something I've been interested in the past couple of years, just trying to, because, okay, so I'll take a step back before I even get to a definition, which makes this even more interesting. That I need a bit of background, but I can even define something very basic. But I think over the past couple of years, there's been a very interesting shift in the dynamic that's happening between, first, within the male part of society around, well, what is it to be a man? There's the general gender debate, which this is not even part of. That's not even part of this conversation around what is a woman, what is a man, etc. All those kind of things. But just even what should a man try to be as a person, whether you identify as one or whether that's you from your sex or gender or whatever. What does it even mean to be a man? And then what does it mean to have male characteristics or tendencies? What are these things? Now we can do this with cats. We can say cat purrs, cats usually doesn't care, very, very rude and arrogant. Snakes, they hiss and they slither everywhere. We can define the characteristics of everything else, but when it starts coming to who we should be, or even basic tenets like masculinity, what is it to be a masculine man? We've been struggling with this over the past couple of months. I've noticed this, and this became very apparent to me yesterday because I was doing a bit of a check on this on this topic. I'm a little bit versed on it, but not that much either. So this is just going to be a conversation. It's not necessarily even a sort of a well-researched sort of dialogue. It's just a conversation that I think is interesting. But I struggle to find a definition of masculinity itself, which is quite interesting. I didn't just struggle to find a definition of masculinity. I struggled to find a definition of masculinity that didn't have any negative connotation. Whenever I was looking, and you can do this as well, even while we're here, when you try to find a definition of masculinity, it tends to bring up negative things. When you're saying what is a masculine man is not someone who overpowers women. A masculine man is not someone who is rude and aggressive, abrasive, etc. It's all negative. There's no positivity in it. When we ask about femininity, what's femininity? It's very easy. We talk about very easy things like gentleness, cooperation, nurturing, kind, supportive, etc. Feminine qualities. We know what these things are. Previously, I thought that we knew what masculinity was and what the masculine definition or the definition of a masculine man would be. I think assertive, someone who's a leader, someone who's confident, someone who's competent, someone who's capable, someone who's respected, someone who is driven, someone who's able to care, provide, protect for his family, for society, who's looked at with respect. That's what I'd have expected that's what masculinity would be. But I've been struggling to find out what that is. And it's interesting. I think even stoicism is another thing that we'd expect from a masculine man. And I'm saying this as someone that also comes from from an African background. It seems that these days, these characteristics are being looked at differently. If you look at the rise of people like Andrew Tate, some of the thing that they call the red pill, which is an interesting topic now of contention, the red pill and the general dynamics that happen within what they call, again, the manosphere. I don't know if anyone here is aware of the series Adolescence. Has any of you, I'm sure you may or may not have heard about the series Adolescence, fairly recently came out. No? Okay.
I've looked at the first. I've seen the first episode.
Aha, exactly. It's a very interesting. If you finish it, it's going to be quite interesting when you're done with it. It tries to delve into these questions, and it became such an important thing that Keir Starmer, the current Prime Minister of the UK, was talking about it in Commons about how they want to institute this as part of classroom education because of the idea that masculinity currently is being seen as toxic. And it's interesting that it's hard to get that clear definition that I've just given out, because everything that denotes being a man is currently being seen as toxic, as bad, as something that shouldn't be looked at with any kind of positivity. Sorry, I mean,
I think you've said some very interesting things, and I just wanted to maybe just set you another challenge in the context of the description that you've given, because you've kind of talked about certain things that it means that you attach to the term masculinity, things like being strong, being a leader. But so my challenge to you is, would that definition be exactly the same today as it was, say, 50, 100 years ago, when those traits were almost a little bit more necessary for day-to-day functioning, saying that they're a lot less necessary in lots of, certainly not all fields, but in lots of fields of human endeavor today, for example. So I suppose the challenge then would be, should definition of what masculinity means not necessarily change with the times, as we have effectively sociologically become different people because of social, technological, medical advancements?
So, good evening. Hello, AK, Jabs, and Yemi, and good evening to our listeners. Before Cross takes on that challenge, I want to take us back a bit to my broad understanding of what masculinity, and then try and give again my understanding on why there is a toxicity. So essentially, it's biology, sociology, and then politics. Biology in the sense that men have the XY chromosome, taller, stronger, hunters, leaders, warriors. And around that biology, and then conversely, women with their biological features get pregnant, they care, they parent, they breastfeed. And then society, we then construct realities around our biology. And that's where the idea of what role, what position, what attributes and characteristics within the context of different cultures a man should play. And in essence, that's the definition of masculinity. Our expected roles as a result of our biology within the context of the norms of our society. And that necessarily means that ideas of masculinity will vary from culture to culture and through time. But broadly speaking, the notion of what men should do and what men should be cuts across most cultures: providers, warriors, soldiers, kings, aggressive, controlling, the head of the family. Those themes cut across. And so I guess that's the biology and the sociology. Then the politics, as over time, women earned rights, again, from events such as war, evolution of civilization, ideologies like feminism. There's been the pushback, particularly in the West, on the traditional man role, who was the head of the family, who had the financial resources, made decisions, and was in full control. With the rise of feminism, a lot of people trace it back to the Great Wars, First World War I and World War II, particularly in Europe now, with the men going off to work, going off to fight in war and dying off. It became necessary economically to therefore let women into the workforce, to let them, give them voting rights, and to expand their role in society from the traditional ones. And that led to where women became, got these rights, then became more empowered, and then coming up to the 50s and 60s with the discovery and use of contraceptive, women could then have casual sex without the consequences or the implications of, say, becoming pregnant, and then the ideology of feminism, and then the pushback on the traditional definition and understanding of masculinity. And I think that's where the idea of toxic masculinity came. And then pushing, and then kind of following that trail of events, that movement, many men define themselves as feminists. The rise of the state within the West, within Europe, eroding into traditional family roles like education, healthcare, provision, equality rights, and then to a point where men began to feel oppressed, feel suppressed. And then that has then leading to this backswing of the likes of Andrew Tate, the likes of the Canadian clinical psychologist. What's his name again?
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson, trying to basically rally the Western men to say, look, you've been feminized, you've been pushed down, you've been demonized. So it's a swing. It's a swing from the extreme traditional understanding of masculinity, women having rights to work, freedom to have casual sex without consequences, the ideology of feminism pushing back on the traditional male power, male control, which now then became described as toxic, wanting to be in charge of family, wanting to tell your wife and your kids what to do, wanting to impose a will, set a direction, with the state playing that role increasingly in the West. And then that pushback is what we call, what I think is referred to as toxic. And then the pushback to that is brought the like of Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate to limelight. That's kind of my understanding of how that debate has evolved from biology, sociology, politics.
Fantastic take there. Can you hear me okay? Because yeah, right. So what I was just going to kind of pick out of what you said, Farouk, which is absolutely fantastic, is that I think there's something that stands out in your description of how things have been, certainly from my point of view, and that's the advancement of the technology of contraception. Because how I have seen this, and it's not just about casual sex, it's about being able to control your reproductive cycle, which women became able to do. That equalized a lot of things biologically, because in the past it used to be that women bore a very heavy burden on sex, on sexual encounters. So it's a very heavy burden they had to bear, which was, you're going to get pregnant, and one pregnancy will change the course of your life. 3, 4, 5, that's all you've got. But once they were able to control their reproductive cycle, that kind of leveled things out a bit. It meant that they could now do things that exclusively used to be for men in a sustained way. And it almost necessarily meant that the relationship between men and women had to change. There's no ways around that. It didn't have to change completely, but that signaled an inevitable change that seems to me that we have to embrace. Because, what else are we going to do with it?
I'm already disagreeing here. I don't think. I mean, sorry. Is Yemi speaking?
Yes. No. I'm still. I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That's fine. I think there's a bit of a delay in your video. I already disagree. I think there's this view currently that over time people have changed, and it's interesting because evolution tends to take tens of thousands of years. I mean, we've got doctors in the house, right? So fundamentally, evolution takes millennia to make even the smallest changes in the actual human biology. And we've come to this idea that somehow
that's not correct.
Are there any changes that happen biologically in one or two generations?
So in our lifetime, the age at which women start their menses, in our lifetime, since you and I have been alive, has reduced by about 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
And so they're getting younger and younger when they start their menstrual period. And this is, data we can Google up.
I'm happy to look at that. But
again,
it's been
so that's just an example of how change happens in front of us. But you're right, in a sense that the majority of changes take a lot longer than that. But if you look at even in our own lifetimes, most children are taller than their parents. Again, you can see this clearly. Like just have a look at it. Most children that you will run across, on average, are taller than their parents.
I'll push back on that one a bit as well, just in the basis of things like amenities, better nutrition, things like education around.
That's what forces evolution. So that again,
I don't necessarily call that evolution, because evolution tends to deal with natural selection. So things that are changes in your DNA, changes in your actual neurochemistry, things like that, what I'm looking at, rather than it being you're taking medicine, therefore you're not dying. It's like, well, that's not necessarily evolution. If you're taking medicine and previously you died from malaria, but you're not anymore, therefore evolution. I'm like, well, no, it's just that you're now doing things that are allowing your body to act the way it should, or optimizing the way your biology should operate rather than altering it. I like how Yemi is
no, I think you're making a good point there. Yeah, again, I don't think the distinction's that clear, but I think the distinction you're making anyway is still worth thinking about. Okay, again, I'm not.
I don't want us to get derailed, because I think we're getting a little bit derailed. But the key thing I was aiming for here was, and I'll play a quick video to just illustrate this point, that the changes are not so significant that they're changing how men and women are. Let me just quickly play this video, if this is all right by everyone here, and then to see it, maybe this would likely illustrate the point. With, as usual, with these things, I need you to let me know if you can hear any sound. Give me a second. Right, okay. Can you see? Yes, you can see the screen. Just let me know if there's no sound. Just give me a shout. Let me know.
Men and women tend to have their own typed temperaments. So women are, on average, higher in negative emotion and higher in agreeableness. And then there are minor distinctions with the rest of the traits, which I won't go into now because they're much smaller. But on average, women are more agreeable. They're more self-sacrificing in relationship to others, which goes along with their propensity to care for infants, because you have to do that when you care for infants. And they're more threat and negative emotion sensitive. And that might be because, well, you could argue that the world is actually objectively more dangerous for women because they're vulnerable on the sexual front and because they're smaller physically, but also that the world needs to be reacted to some degree as if it's a more threatening place, because women are charged with the primary care of infants, and infants are very vulnerable.
Sorry, I can't hear you anymore, Cross. Is that just me?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yep. Okay. I think the point I was trying to raise with this is, even with the technological advancements that we've made, whether medical, whether infrastructural, whether technological from a systematic or electronic perspective, etc., it hasn't changed the fact that men and women still behave the same. The roles that we have haven't changed. They seem to have changed with some They seem, and this is on the surface level, in terms of because of the sexual revolution, the introduction of the tampon, very fundamental thing that changed how women no longer had a few days of the year that they were completely unproductive, or almost in some cultures excluded from society as a result of their period. The introduction of the pill, the birth control pill, and other types of reproductive what are these things called actually? Birth control mechanisms means that women can now delay the results or the consequences of sex to whenever they decide that they want to have children. It's even though these things seem to appear to have changed how we are as men and women, it hasn't actually affected the attributes of masculinity and femininity. We're still men and women, and we still act and still have the same interests. Those haven't changed.
Cross, I will speak to Jordan Peterson's. That's Jordan Peterson I highlighted in my initial speech.
Yeah.
I will speak to his short clip there and reference some examples and link it to the idea of toxic masculinity. He went through the framework I used there. He referenced biology. Women are smaller. He referenced the fact that they care for infants as a result of their biology because they have mammary glands and necessarily breastfeed. So that's the biology. On the sociological level, it's all our creation. It's how we then operationalize our biology to set how we function. Is the role different cultures and ideologies apportioned to male and female based on their capacities and based on how we organize ourselves to function. So in the Islamic and the Jewish traditions, for example, women when menstruating, which is entirely biological event, are considered not pure. So this is me taking biology to sociology now, to organization of society or ideologies. And during that period, they don't pray, they don't fast, their husband should not touch them, they are considered unclean. These are all sociological constructs around the biology. And then you come, and that's in the Jewish and say Islamic tradition. You then come to the Western tradition, where in the era of feminism, in the era of equal rights, in the era of critical thought and debate, people consider that you consider a female in whatever context impure to be toxic. So this is an example that kind of links biology, sociology, and ideology with politics. And I think it's that pushback to the way masculinity and femininity had been iterated over the ages that then brings us to this notion of toxic masculinity, because there are many ways in which 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, 100 years ago, we've operationalized these ideas of what a man should do, what a woman should do, what a man can do, what a woman can't do, that in light of the technology today, the medicines today, the rights today, and the evolution of civilization today, can actually be considered toxic and harmful. And I guess, again, to reiterate what I said earlier, where Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson are having that comeback is because they believe that movement has gone so far as to suppress men, to make them feel whatever they do is toxicity, whatever they do is controlling, whatever they do is narcissism. And I think in the West, there's that pendulum switch from one extreme to the other extreme, and it's now trying to find a balance. For the rest of the world, wherever the West goes, we follow because of their immense wealth, which has then been manifested in control of the narrative, of the media, of social media and mainstream media. So they influence what we say, do in Nigeria. And traditional African iteration of masculinity is also being challenged, where now, say somewhere like in Nigeria and Africa, we're moving in the direction of the way because of that influence. And I want to say that largely we are emulating the positive aspects where women are seen as partners, are seen as playing a crucial role, and 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 are having more say in how their families, their communities, and societies are organized. But again, I don't want our listeners or the panel to think that I am accepting that somehow African cultures have done things wrong. I think there are many African cultures where women have very influential and powerful roles. And that's not because we've emulated the West. That is essentially how those societies have evolved. Africa is even Nigeria is a very, very diverse place with multiple tribes and cultures that do things differently. We have communities in Africa and in Nigeria where women lead, women can be kings, women can be breadwinners, they make decisions and they organize family and communities and they are revered. So for example, in the Yoruba culture, in the Igala culture, there are many social attributes that brings respect. One is age. So an elderly woman will be respected by all. And one is title, bloodlines, entrepreneurship. So again, I just thought I should put that in there so that there's that nuance as to how things have gone in the West and how things have always been, and it's also evolving in Nigeria and Africa.
Thanks, Farooq. I think that's just kind of bringing us very nicely into the second segment, which is almost contrasting this idea of masculinity versus the charge of misogyny and seeing where we draw the balance. But very quickly, I'd want to just insert an idea just to kind of maybe balance out or even misalign slightly with what AK said earlier. So the idea that we can make all these technological changes and still retain the sociological balance that we had, the exact, where the lines were between men and women, just seemed a little bit unrealistic to me. So just to give you an example, in the past, in the military, you needed men to carry heavy weapons and whatever they call this, is it the rucksack or whatever, and go into very difficult terrains to fight. These days, you still need that, but you also have people who just from an office control a drone and level out cities where in fact there's no evidence that men can do that better than women. So you're beginning to there isn't. So to sit on a computer and control a computer with precision, and even some flying drills to fly over a city in an aircraft and bomb it to smithereens. I'm not sure there's any evidence that men do that better than women. So there are specific tasks that have become gender neutral, really, and you're talking very high level tasks. Not just there's no evidence that male surgeons do better than female surgeons, for example. And if a woman has control of her reproductive cycle and can be present to do the work. So necessarily the whole balance changes. I mean, it doesn't matter whether we engineer the change or we want it to change. This is inevitable change. And I suppose where it becomes difficult is that there can be an overreach, like everything. So I do consider the movement away from the very strict traditional roles. I consider them, I wouldn't say good or bad, it's just inevitable. And if something is inevitable, you just have to accept it. You just have to adapt to it and live with it and accept that, that's where it is. But I do accept there can then be sort of sides to it that becomes problematic. I think Farooq has begun articulating, and I suppose we can get into that now. So where, misogyny, masculinity, where that balance becomes difficult in day-to-day life, where, what is masculinity, where does it cross the line? When people are, when a girl's walking past a building site and men are wolf whistling,
Well,
Is that
Yeah,
acceptable?
can I just quick? Yeah, hear me. So I want. Can you hear me?
Yes,
yes,
I
I
can
Yes.
hear
can.
you. Sorry,
Yeah.
my
Okay.
video is lagging behind, so ignore my
Yes.
video. Just use
Yes.
my
Okay.
voice.
That's
Your
fine.
video is
Okay.
actually quite entertaining. I'm
Yeah.
enjoying
Okay.
that
So your
actually.
video is a bit behind. Now I was going to give a more everyday example actually that is relevant to us four and our listeners at the moment, which is that if you went back, let's say 40, 50 years, what am I even saying? Maybe even 20 years ago in Nigeria, before technology came along, you know, your our moms would have like swept the house with so you've got to use broomstick to sweep the house, sweep the whole compound, wash the dishes, and if you have, I don't know, four, five, six, seven, eight children, as used to be the custom, you can imagine it's just constant. It was just constant house chore, constant washing, constant, everything had to be done manual. But us four who are here, those jobs are now done by machines. So you've got a dishwasher, you've got a washing machine, you've got, so suddenly you've got all this, the the I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 hours in a day when you would have been just constantly engaged in physical activity, physical cleaning of the house. Suddenly a machine does all of those things. What do you do with those hours now? So us, we now suddenly have the kids, and you now have to start taking them to the park, doing stuff with them, finding ways to sort of engage them. So I don't think that that is a bad thing. Technology has enabled that. And if you happen to be I think when AK and I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago about misogyny, I was saying that if a man came from work and you came, let's say, I don't know, you finish your work at 2 p.m. or 3 p.m., right? And your wife is she's been looking after the kids, and you come home and there isn't any job per se to do, would you not really assist? Like, would you not help load the dishes? And does that make you a feminine man, or effeminate to just do the chores that are in the house? I really don't think that it is, because I have a sense that when AK talks about toxic masculinity, he is probably, I think, I might be wrong about this, AK, please correct me, but I've got a feeling that I think you've got some issues with the gender roles. And in my view, there is nothing set in stone about this gender roles, right? It's not, God didn't come down from heaven and said, men can only do XYZ and women can only do ABC type of thing. They're all socially constructed, like we've been talking about, taking into context our biology as well as the technology that was available at the time of the day. And as Yemi said, if you are living in 2025 with all of these technologies, of course, gender roles are going to be different to 200 years ago when these technologies were not present. So I've kind of poked AK. I think he's going to come charging back. So,
You poked the bear,
I mean,
as you
when I
always
start
do.
writing, you know what's happening. No, there's a few interesting things, if I may, because you've both given me some things that I need to respond to. So the first, or you've all three of you have given me things to respond to, actually. So with yours, Farouk, you're talking about how impurities, periods could be seen as impurity within Islam, but it's not necessarily seen as so. I think I completely disagree with that. I think it's something that was also quite relevant because Jab, you know this as well with our background in tackling Christianity and having those conversations. Those very fun, interesting conversations that could get us into trouble back in the day. These days are becoming more mainstream. But in Christianity, it was a bit of a challenge. Because Leviticus 15, I don't remember the verse, but he used to talk about it, about how women having discharges made them unclean for 7 days or something like that. So it was still it's still seen across on the Christian side. So you got the Muslim side, which is taking a significant proportion of society. I think last time I checked, what was it? Was it 2 billion? Is it 2 billion people who are Muslims in the world, or something like that? And we've got Christians who are also a sizable chunk. And you've got these two who are basically saying women are unclean during that period across different areas of the world. Same thing with Judaism, but I'm not even going to even bother with that one because it's not even relevant in this context. There's quite a few other religions, or even non-religions, and just cultures that had also seen the period as being unclean. So I think so. And this the interesting thing about that is that a lot of these ones did not have that, that interaction across them to determine whether or not this was seen as unclean. Humans decided in their own individual societies what was acceptable and what was not. And they all decided unanimously, without even any interaction, no debate, no conversation, that certain things were what they were. I'm not saying that's correct or that's not correct, but it's interesting to note that humans across different societies still came to the same conclusions. That's that one. The second is that around how
I'm not sure about the lack of interaction. How do we know?
Yeah,
Because
but I mean,
Judeo-
also,
we didn't have the internet, we didn't have mobile phones, we didn't have anything. Is it
also,
one person
No,
just come over to the
also,
other side and change everything?
but the
also cross.
Judeo-Christian Islam
So cross,
religions
cross. I
go on.
mean, so what if humans across civilizations and cultures came to the same conclusion? We were all reacting. We're all reacting to the same fundamental biology. We had
That's my
a
point.
female sex who had
Exactly.
menstruation every month in at a time where knowledge was limited and people needed to make sense of the world around them. In the same way that across many cultures, people evolved the idea of God. Yeah, I mean, the last time I checked, close to 5,000 different gods or iterations of the Almighty. And that were all cultures trying to understand why we were here. What is the meaning of life?
Which is again, you're proving my point.
Yeah.
But go on.
So humans naturally we respond to biology and environment.
Yes.
So
exactly.
women that live in the mountains, in the forest, in the desert, with cattle,
Exactly
on the river will evolve differently to face the challenges of their
but you're
time.
saying we evolve the same.
Well,
Your point is we're evolving the same.
I mean, so
regardless of the terrain or the environment,
we will
we're doing the
evolve
same thing.
differently vis-a-vis differences in our environment, but in the same way vis-a-vis our biology. Women in all cultures menstruate.
Yeah.
So they needed an understanding of that. Humans in all culture ask the question, why are we here? So they created gods and religions and belief systems.
Yeah.
So
can I just add quickly that actually even Christianity, Islam, and Judaism did not evolve differently. They, in fact, are offshoots from each other. That's why they're so similar.
I have argued this before. I agree. I align with you 100%, Yemi. I've argued this before severally.
Yeah, they didn't
same region, same names, same stories.
Yeah, they copy from each other.
But they all do. I mean, you can go beyond. You can go before that, and you start talking about things like the flood, and then the flood had multiple different variations from source with multiple different non-Christian or Islamic affiliated, not even religions. I mean, the Epic of Gilgamesh is that Christianity or is it not? We're using the same frameworks because we're human. We still use the same concepts. So it doesn't, even though we're saying, and this is the fundamental thing I'm trying to say. Humanity doesn't change. We're the same. We still do the same things across anything, whether you're black, white, Asian. It doesn't matter what you are. We still seem to do the same things. It's not about knowledge share even. We're not necessarily even sharing the knowledge. It's not even that. We just come to the same conclusions. It's just what it is. We find out because we're biologically wired to come to these conclusions.
Sorry, can I understand your position then? Are you saying that the gender roles that we had 150 years ago,
I'll get to that because I need to work through.
Can I just finish the question? So just to get you clear, that they were good for that time and they are still good for today.
I'll get to that. I need to work through because I know exactly, but I need to work through the different points that you're all saying and then make it make sense. So the other part was like, well, basically this that we're saying. Now, first of all, humans haven't changed over time. Males, females, whatever. We've not fundamentally changed. We're still the same. We've adjusted a few nuances. So, okay, we don't necessarily need to wear the kind of clothes that we're wearing 100 years ago, and we don't need to ride horses. But we still need to go from A to B, and we still have the same interest in the same things that we've been interested in throughout time. Look at women, for example. Women generally are attracted to men taller than them, more successful than them. They are stronger than them. They are just have better status, etc. Women look for certain biological markers same like men. We look for certain biological markers as well when we're looking at women. That's not changed. Women don't need a man that's taller than them. Why are they still attracted to tall men? Why are they attracted to men that are well built and have muscles and everything? We're not hunters. We're not chasing pigs and looking for feed on the hunt, etc. and stuff like that.
Do you think that might be social conditioning? Do you think that's acculturation?
Because it's too many cultures. If it was
Okay,
if it was only
So, to give an example, in Nigeria,
yes,
the Calabar people, Akwa Ibom, women go into like a fattening house, before they get married, because it's considered the fertile. It's desirable that they are, curvy and plump, and
why?
do you know what I mean?
But why though?
Just a social.
No, but I'm saying that
it's
okay.
not social.
No,
it wasn't. But go on.
No, I'm saying no, but that is one culture, because then if you come this way,
Yeah, but you can't just say that. You need to say why, because the thing about it that's quite important is
the point I was making was your question. Your point was that women are attracted to men who are tall. But what I'm trying to say is that I don't believe that there's anything biological necessarily about that. I think that might just be a function of culture. This is what I'm trying to suggest to you.
I'm saying it's not. I'm going the opposite route of this one. I'm saying absolutely not. I'm saying that what this tends to be is a marker of what that person. So in these cases, for example, right, what's happened in society in the last 100 years, and this is again, it's cross-cultural with zero interaction across the West, the East, or even us in, I don't even, where does Africa even sit? Wherever it sits, in the middle, wherever, it doesn't matter. What's happened is the same thing. We look for generally markers of fertility and markers of biological purity. Now, in the old days, being thin was a sign of poverty. So you look at people who are thin, they're not thin because they were rich and they were taking care of and eating healthy food. They were thin because they had no food. They're hungry and they're starving. Currently, if you're fat, especially in the West, because you're eating McDonald's every day. You don't take care of yourself, you don't eat the right food. It's a marker, and we understand and identify markers. It's not changing our biological imperative. We still look for markers of fertility, of health, and all those things that come with it. Those markers can change, but it doesn't change what we're looking for, is my point. That's the key thing here. I still have a couple points, if I may just go through them, if I may. So fundamental, and these changes don't matter regardless of society. This happened in the West as well. It's not just the African cultures that you mentioned. So if we even go into that, there are quite a few, even here in the West. It was seen as a sign of wealth to be fat 500 years ago here in the West. In Europe, if you are part of the bourgeoisie, you are generally fat. Most of the images and depiction of the upper class here were of fat people. The people who are skinny were poor. That's generally what it was. And that's what still applies now. We're looking at the African perspective, who had zero interaction with the West, are doing the exact same thing. They are looking at the biomarkers of success, wealth, status, fertility, etc., that matter. Now, the other thing.
So colonialism, isn't that interaction?
I know, but these places that you're talking about were not colonized, so it doesn't work. These are people who are following traditional things. They're sat in their huts. They're wearing all the things that they're wearing. So it doesn't apply. It doesn't work. Now,
okay, I'll let you land first of all.
Yeah,
I'll let you land.
Okay. Yeah. I've got a couple of planes, but because there was a lot of things that were thrown at me. And then the other thing was drone pilots. We're talking about drone pilots and talking about how, well, now we can have women doing things that women. The reality is women don't necessarily do things that don't interest them. Women are not interested in STEM, period. That's the reality of it. STEM has become significantly easier over the past 60 years. However, women don't care. They don't get involved in it. They tend to focus in more social areas. That's just what women tend to be.
What is STEM?
Science, technology, engineering, and math. Yeah, but
is medicine part of that?
I would say some parts of medicine. So I would say bits around research, bits around technological development.
On the medical register in the UK.
Sorry?
There are more women on the medical register, the General Medical Council in the UK, than men as of today.
That doesn't mean anything.
The trend in Nigeria is also following the same pattern.
That doesn't mean anything.
In the next 20, 30 years in Nigeria.
Doesn't mean anything. What are they doing is what I'm going to be interested in. Are they focusing on nursing? Are they focusing in areas that have to do with human interaction?
We're talking about medicine. being doctors, medical doctors.
Even
There are
then,
more women.
as what? Are they focusing on? Is it what's it called? My
Yes.
brain is
You're right about that one. There are specialty differences, and in places
exactly.
like
It's
pediatrics,
very
and
clear.
you might find one. You're right, but
Yeah.
the trend in all specialties is that the participation of women is increasing in all of it. Okay,
But in all of it doesn't mean anything to me. I need to break down all
Cross,
of it into
Cross,
specific areas. We need to talk about what we're talking about.
Cross, I'm struggling to get your point. The point you're making that on this specific point of jobs, that female tends to be nurses, carers, they're going to profession that kind of aligns more with their biology. If that's the point you are making, I think we all agree. The counterpoint, but that point does not counter the point that was made earlier, that times have changed, technologies have changed, available medicines have changed. So women being able to control their reproductive cycle, women being able to engage in military conflict, not from the front line or having to move cranes and massive stones. Therefore means that society has adapted to these interventions and technologies that therefore has radically changed the role for women across the world. So for example, before the First World War, they were not let into the workforce. They could not control when they got pregnant. And as a result of these things becoming available and that control becoming available, their role has necessarily changed. A strong driver for how we assign gender roles in the West is cost of living, financial. So it is beneficial for me and my wife to work than for I alone to work. And so therefore, I elect to and I accept to take on childcare responsibilities so my wife can earn and so that she can contribute and so that we live a better quality of life. So that is, as a family, responding to financial pressure, to tax pressure. There are ways we organize ourselves because of taxation. So,
and not just pressure.
That argument that technology, legislation, society has evolved, and so therefore men and women in all societies have evolved their roles, either imposed by legislation or by pragmatic considerations. I think that argument is foolproof and can be true when your point that women go into roles that align with the agenda can also be true at the same time.
But it's not. Okay, so
I don't think they need to. I don't think they need. I don't think they need to counter each other. Both can be true.
They do, Farouk. I'm sorry, they do. And I'm okay. I'm gonna rapid fire through so it makes a lot of sense. Really quickly, right? So first, I'm gonna go back to the thing about technological advancements mean, and we talked specifically about drone pilots, and I like that because I've been interested particularly in the war that's happening in Eastern Europe, which has allowed me to look at a bunch of statistics. So one of the statistics that I understand is as well that there's only 4% of drone pilots that are women. Why?
Because they're not interested in it, but they can do it if they want.
Exactly.
They can do it.
No, but it doesn't matter.
The interest doesn't change anything. If they want,
but it does.
They can do it as well as a man does it.
But we don't know that because we've not had them do it. So, for example, we've also got
we do because we know that those
but we don't have evidence. I want to see the evidence. The evidence tends to occur through participation rates. Chess grandmasters, only 42 of them are women. There are over 2,000 chess grandmasters in the world at the moment. That's less than 2% of them being women. Women are not as good as men in chess. And chess is an intellectual discourse.
Can I just propose you a challenge on that particular point? So the majority of the people that play cricket around the world, they come from like 10 countries. Are you suggesting to me that Nigerians can't play cricket if they want to? It's just they're not interested in it.
I'm saying
what I mean? Like they're just not interested in cricket.
I'm disagreeing with you. I'm saying the Nigerians are just not going to be as good. It's just what it is for whatever reason.
So they're not going to be as good as the Indians. So if Nigerians decided that now we were interested in cricket, we want to play, we're just never going to be as good as the Indians or the Bangladesh.
You cannot convince me that 200 million people, out of the 200 million people, we have not found 20 of them that are better than the 1.7 billion, I think it is for India.
They're just not interested. Nigerians don't. They're not.
I'm sorry, I can't agree with that. Your population size is too high. It's too big.
Cross, even if we agree,
none of them are good enough. Because
even if we agree that they are not as good, that still doesn't make the point. I'm not as good as looking after my kids as my wife. It does not mean my gender role has not evolved into more childcare. The argument really is that because of pragmatic reasons, because of technology, because of legislation, because of evolution, gender roles have changed. The argument isn't who is better as what. I mean, if you're arguing that men still make better soldiers and women still make better nurses, that doesn't mean gender roles have not changed. That doesn't mean it's not evolving in response to technology. That's a different argument entirely.
No, but the problem is they haven't changed. And this is the thing. Women's expectations of men have not changed. If you go and sit down as a man, if anybody's watching this thing right now, you better listen to this very, very clearly. If you as a man sit down in a house and you're a house husband, a stay-at-home husband, and you're going to take care of the kids and you don't go work, your woman's going to leave you. Doesn't matter how many kids you have, doesn't matter how much you love, doesn't care. If you are not going to go and work, you are done. I'm going all out to say this. One of the biggest reasons.
Okay, Cross, let me
because I'm saying something really controversial. So let me land my point on this one. If you are sitting out on your ass as a man and you're sitting at home, you're not taking care of your family, you're not providing far more than 50% in terms of financial, emotional, general, everything manly that we're discussing about earlier on today. Your leadership, your confidence, your assertion, your resources, your capability, your reliability, the respect, your status, etc. If you're sat on your ass at home and what you're doing is changing nappies only, you are done. That's the reality of the situation.
So this is
Cross. I think
you need to understand this one.
This is pure Niger masculinity.
It's not. It's happening. Look at the divorce statistics. What is one of the fundamental reasons why women divorce men these days? The number one reason why 60%. Sorry, let me just land this one again because I'm saying things that are relatively controversial, and I want to make sure that I'm backing them up with rationale. Sorry, wait, Yemi, please, Yemi. I don't want to say something half. I'm not finished, especially with something like this. 60% of marriages end up in divorce currently, and over 50% of that reason is financial difficulties, where the woman files 70 to 80% of the time. Women are leaving men for sitting down and not providing financially and in ways that are relevant to that. It's just what it is. I don't care whether it sounds nice or it's just what it is.
Okay, let someone else say something, Cross. So what I'd say to you firstly is that on the particular point you're making about the traits that women find attractive in men, I actually don't disagree with you that much. So it tends to be that women still value lots of masculine traits. You know, women want men for the things that men tend to be able to do. Work hard. Not that women don't work hard, but you know what I mean. If you go to the so if you been a fixer, so an example would be if when I'm driving back, I do a lot of out of hours work, and I'm driving back home at 12:30 midnight, and you see all these construction workers on the road, in the snow, in the winter, digging up. They tend to be men, right? It's like almost always exclusively men. Okay, so there's something about men that fix things, but that's in a very specific role. Okay. Society has evolved beyond just needing that high energy, high graft, which is still necessary, as in the case of those who build the roads. But what I am saying to you today is you can make as much money, even more, by doing things today that women and men are equally equipped to do. IT, get on your computer. If a woman is interested in IT, they can do it as well as a man can.
But
you don't need any muscles. Because they're not interested in it.
Because biology is still biology, and people have not changed, regardless of the technological advancements.
So 40% of Premier League footballers in the UK are termed black. I don't think you would suggest that black people play football better than white people.
I'm saying that they do. Yeah. I mean, no, scientifically proven. Generally, black people have better genetics when it comes to sports, muscle, and you're all doctors, you know this.
No, it depends.
Black people have better
So
physiology.
it's more complicated than that. Cross.
I know it's more complicated, but
Yeah,
let's dumb it down.
I think Jab wants to say something.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. No. So the thing I want to say is I think that Cross has said a lot of things that in my view, I think a lot of the stuff that he said is laden with assumptions. That's what I think, right? I think you've kind of almost decided that the stuff you're saying is all founded upon facts. But I feel like, there are more straightforward explanations. I think a lot of these gender roles that you're talking about, they're not, I don't think that they are biological. I think they are socially constructed. Yes, we are biologically different for the reasons that Farouk has already explained. And just to recap a few of them, we have more muscle mass, we tend to be taller, we are stronger, and women have a uterus, they have to have babies, they have to breastfeed the baby. So of course, in the traditional, if you went back to when humans started to organize their societies, it does make sense if to get food means that you have to go chasing an antelope or something, right? It makes sense that the stronger people are the people who are going to be running after this antelope or wild boar, whatever it is, right? A woman who's got a baby, you're not going to send her with the baby. She's carrying the baby and she's running after an antelope. It doesn't make sense, does it? So humans are not stupid, and they have to organize their society. Therefore, those roles evolved to reflect the reality of the technology that was available there, or the absence of technology, if you want to put it that way. Well, technology has always been there, but it was rudimentary. Therefore, men became the hunters and the gatherers, and they were the people who had to go out and hunt, whilst the women cared for children. But we're not in the Stone Age anymore. Now we've got technology, and the example that Yemi gave about drone, warfare. You're saying that in Ukraine,
Not Ukraine, in the world, 4% of
okay,
all the drone pilots
right?
are,
Okay, so
are women.
yeah, no, but
Why are they not
if
doing
you
it?
went back, yes, but if you went back only 100 years ago, I don't know what that women were in. Maybe they were just letting women in.
Maybe even 25 years ago, Jab.
All right, okay, so there you go. So it takes time for these things to
No,
change.
I'm sorry.
Let me
That's
land. Let me finish my point. Let me finish
utterly
my point, please.
bollocks.
I've listened to you. Let me finish my point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is that times change. You don't go looking for an explanation that is very complex when a simple explanation stares you in the face. So to me, a lot of these things can be explained by simple change in technology. They are socially constructed, and not too long ago, women could not serve in the forces. Now they've been allowed to, take up those jobs and positions. So in one day, you're not going to go from 0% to 100%. It's in the same way that we're talking about like medical. It was just the other day we were talking about medical students in University of Ibadan, which is my alma mater. I hear now there are more female doctors, female medical students who obviously, which means that in a few years they're going to be, that's the school, if not already, is going to be graduating more female doctors compared to male doctors. Already in the UK, that is the situation. There are more women. But if you went back 50 years ago, that number would probably be, I don't know, maybe 80%, 20%, 80% men, maybe 20% women. So it does take time for things to change. And to me, it's a more plausible explanation than saying that women somehow, because of their hormones, don't like certain jobs compared to others. I really think that it's just a matter of
How much time did you need to change to become a doctor in the UK? I think. Sorry, Farouk. Sorry, I need to respond to this. I think this idea that humans need generations because they were all a bunch of morons in the past, and that we need like 15 generations. Women could vote from 1928 in the UK, for example. Nigeria, women never had the issue of being able to vote. What is the issue that is stopping, generally speaking, men earn more? Even in Nigeria, men earn more money, are generally more socially and sociopolitically relevant and able to hold the roles that are relevant. Men are generally hold the STEM roles in Nigeria. I'm not even talking about Europe. It's the same thing that still applies in Europe. But for some reason, we're saying, oh no, things need time to change, etc. How many generations are we talking about? Is it doing 2,000 years? We're able to come and make our differences anywhere we go because we're
Independence,
capable of going.
independence was 1960. How many women went to uni at that time or had those opportunities? That was just it was
what
just
opportunities?
It was just 1960 Nigeria got independence, right?
You keep saying just. Everybody from 1960 are now old. The people that were born after that, what's their excuse? What's the reason why people who are born in 1980?
Because
in our
it
era,
takes time for societies to change. Come on.
To change what? You need to be more specific. You can't just say change.
Okay.
What?
Let me try. Cross. Let me try.
Yeah.
I think there are few things going on here. If what you're trying to say is that women have, if what you're trying to say is that a lot has remained the same, I don't think anyone on the panel disagrees. We're highlighting the ways in which things are changing and are evolving. And I think the operative word is changing. It's a verb, it's ongoing. And wherever we reach, that will also still evolve based on the knowledge, the discoveries, and the evolution of the future. So that's the first thing I want to say. So I think broadly, I agree in many ways, things have remained the same. But that also in many ways, things are changing.
Like what?
We've talked about the fact that women can even are in the workforce at all, the fact that they can control their reproductive cycle, the fact that they can enlist in the military, the fact that we have families now where the woman might be the breadwinner because they earn more, and so the wife will have to sit and the husband will have to take more interest in childcare and school runs. So there is a lot that is changing.
You're saying things, but you're not substantiating any of them. You're saying, okay, women can join the military. Do they join the military? No. You're saying things like, okay, well, women are able to join the workforce. Do they generally want to join the workforce? In most cases, they go for the easiest possible roles.
But that's a non-argument. They're actually 50% of the workforce in the West, from 0% or less than 2% a century ago.
Doing what?
No, that's a different conversation. What they are doing, it's a different conversation, because the point we're saying is that we're coming from a point where they were not in the workforce to now that they are in the workforce. Right. What they are doing is another conversation. Now,
give me half a minute.
One point I want to make is that biology has consequences.
Yeah.
It has implications, and it encodes in our minds things that we call evolutionary traits. So when you say a woman likes a macho man, that comes from thousands of years of memory, encoded in the DNA, that a strong man provides, a tough man provides, an aggressive man protects. It may not always play out that way. So these subtle preferences are from biology, encoded in experiences passed on through practices and adages, and then become expectations. Yeah. So why would a woman want to join the army even though they can? More have joined, but people have preferences, and so these preferences does come from biology, and then how society constructs around that biology, and then the implications of that over time. For example, you've talked about men being at the top, men earning more, but you ignore the implication and the significant consequence of pregnancy, breastfeeding, and childbearing on a woman's career, and on even the career they can do. Somebody made a very good argument about hunting antelopes. So if there are more male hunters, it's just humanity reacting to biology. And if more male corporate workers make it to the management level, then that's because the woman has had to take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years off to raise children while the male continues to work. So biology does have implications to earnings, to power, and therefore to how we organize society.
And
So
interest.
I've got another challenge, and I'm sorry we're picking on Cross, but so I've got another challenge just to kind of drive home the point. I believe.
Yemi, before you do that, please, can I just make a quick comment? And it's just to reinforce what Farouk just said. Now, I know that AK would probably say, Cross, I beg your pardon, sorry, might say that this is biology again. But let's assume if you went back, I don't know, maybe 200 years ago or something, or no, let's even go back to like hunter-gatherer type of thing. Okay, a woman might be attracted, a female might be attracted to the male that she thinks is physically fit because he can run and provide and gather and bring to the family and protect her, right? Today, those physical attributes are probably maybe less significant because if the guy is short and he is in, I don't know, he's not your typical alpha male, let's say physique, right? But let's say he's like I don't know, a billionaire or something like that.
Yep.
Right?
It will be attractive. It's
Thank
just
you.
like
Exactly.
my dear Yemi, the billionaire is.
Exactly.
but
So suddenly he becomes attractive because he's got the potential to be able to buy all the protection and buy the
but we're saying the same. We're saying the same
So
thing.
essentially,
you're not saying the same, because you're saying
Let me tell you why.
this is all biologically I'm saying that
I'll tell you why.
I'm
I can explain
saying
it
that
with
it's
cavemen.
one second. I'm saying it's socially constructed, and we are responding not just to biology now, but also responding to technology.
No, we're
The
not.
reality
We're not. I'm saying we're not. I know. I understand what you're saying 100%. I'm saying that even if you take this back to the caveman era, you have a man in the caveman era that had 50 cows in his cave every time that are hanging from the stick. Even if that man was not fit and strong or whatever, and he had other fit and strong men running around getting him his cows, women are going to prefer him to the fit and strong men who are running around taking the cows for him. Because that guy's able to build an empire. If you think about most of the empires that existed and all the kingship, etc., and stuff like that, again, going back to the points I raised earlier, those people are fat. They are fat people who are running all these societies and stuff. But they are not the ones. The gladiators were getting killed. They took them there and put them there in the cage, and they were laughing when they're all getting murdered. The guys with six-pack and big chests were getting murdered for entertainment of fat people.
You are arguing against your own case because you were talking about fertility determining these attractions and all that. But now we're saying fertility, to you,
sorry, what?
Yes, because when I gave the example of women who were plump in Cross River and Calabar,
men or women? You're jumping across conversations. I'm not talking about women. I'm talking about men because you are talking about men.
All right. Okay. That's fine. I think we'll leave it there. We'll allow. Sorry, Yemi, carry on then. So I
no, it's fine. I think he was right in line. I just wanted to pick on this particular point about participation, relative lack of participation, mean proof of inability to do it. And I just wanted to pose another challenge to say, to Cross about what percentage he felt in America of STEM, hardcore STEM, as I would call it whatever you want, but things like space science or astronomy, or what percentage do you think are blacks?
Oh wow, a black.
Yes.
I don't know. I can guess, but I don't know.
I don't know either, but I know it's not proportionate to the population and it's quite low.
It wouldn't be. It would probably be something like 2% or something like that.
Does that mean that black people can't do it?
It does tell you about the proclivity for black people to find it interesting, which is the point. It's not necessarily about only about capability. Capability is a factor. How capable are you to do XYZ thing? But are you interested in that? And that goes back to what we're talking about. Are men and women, are they interested in certain things? Men are interested in things that we're interested in we are interested in things like football generally. It doesn't mean that this applies to everybody. Again, in football, we want to go and work hard. We want to go and
Again,
work
that's
hard in physical.
socio-cultural again. This is all
But
acculturation.
again, it's not
It's
because it applies.
socialization.
But no, but it's not because it applies across all cultures across the world. So if it's socialization, I'll say, yeah, fine. It's this culture, and in Europe, it's like this. Then in Nigeria, it's like that, and then
Yeah.
No.
in
Men,
Asia, but it's the same everywhere.
men played football for a few decades before women were allowed to play.
Okay,
You know, today there's female football. It does not mean that
but female football doesn't make any money.
biologically-
Nobody watches it. No one cares. Why? Why don't people care? It's because it's not as good as male football. That's the reality. Social media came in the past 10 years and it's here. And people are becoming extremely successful at it. Why? It's not because they need 200,000 years of becoming good at it. Even within social media, men are still dominating it. Why? It's new.
So Cross, allow me to agree with you because there are situations where I think you have a point, right? It's not also some of what you're saying is correct. So if you watch female football and you watch male football, right? They're two different things. I mean, there's no football fan that will pretend that you are watching the same thing.
Some do.
And that is reflected in the viewership, the amount of money that comes into it, and how much they're paid. The average Premier League male footballer probably gets paid something like 20, maybe 10, 20 times what the female footballer is paid. There's good reasons for that. It's not the same thing. I don't see a world in which women can run as fast as men and jump as fast as them, and I don't see that happening. And so with regards to that, there are certain constraints that biology imposes that I'm not going to sit down here and deny, right? But we're making a broader point, right? I can't run as fast as a lot of female footballers, right? And that is also partly biologically imposed because I'm older and I'm not a professional athlete. Okay, but that doesn't mean that extrapolates to society as a whole. Okay, football is just one thing. I am pointing out to you that because of technological advancements that include ability to manipulate our own biology, in this case, the reproductive cycle of women, and also be able to do things that don't require you to run fast or jump fast or have big muscles, that the landscape has leveled in unimaginable ways. So
what are women doing?
Can I just finish? So lots of the things that I do at work, I don't have any advantage over a woman, like zero. There's nothing. Like I go to see a patient and I speak to them and we talk and I prescribe a medicine and there's just nothing about the male biology that gives me any advantage at all. It's zero.
What are women doing it?
So
in fact, the female biology.
We like what we like.
In fact, the female biology. We've lost Yemi.
No, I'm still here.
Okay.
It's glitching.
I can hear you. No, correct.
Okay. So, in fact, the female biology in your context that makes them means they have a uterus, they have babies, they breastfeed, they nurture, means that for sick patients, they may be more caring and more empathic than you are.
The evidence suggests that they
are. And that patients might prefer them to you.
Well,
generally speaking.
Better listeners.
And Cross asked several times when he was speaking that why does it have to take generations to change? Because culture. Remember, we've repeated this over and over and over again, that this is socially constructed. Culture takes time to change and evolve necessarily. I mean, fast change can be imposed by legislation. The equality law makes it illegal to discriminate on certain people. That day it comes into force, it becomes illegal, and that can be immediate. But many other things evolve over generations.
Even that doesn't change it immediately. It forces it, it makes it quicker, but attitude still persists often for decades, despite legislation. It takes decades of whipping people into line for
that's them to... culture. It's not individual change. It's cultural evolution. It's society. Okay, I mean, look at how long it takes people to become Christian. How it's taken 200-300 years for Europe to move to a post-Christian space. That's how culture ideology. Change
Again,
it.
it's global. We're talking on a global scale. All the cultures are different, but we still do the same things. This is my point. My point is we do this globally with zero cultural interaction. In China, they're using chopsticks. In England, they're using fork and knife. In Nigeria, we're using hand to eat. I'm not denigrating any of that. I'm just saying that we have different cultures in specific things. Somehow, the way we deal as men and women is the same across everywhere, regardless
It's similar.
of the
I will
actual
use the word
culture.
similar rather than the same.
It's the same. It's the same. It's just the same. The way we
what do you mean by the same?
by the same, I mean that the man, and we're going back to the topic, and I like the fact that we're rounding up with the topic, but the man is expected to do man things, and the woman is expected to do woman things. And the crossover,
What is man thing?
regardless
What
of
is woman
opportunity.
thing?
Okay,
I'll get to that.
Can I just throw in the last question as we make our final submissions? Just try to include how can we make better men, and what does that mean to you? Put that into your.
And I'll do this off the back of this conversation, anyway. So it's for me. It's like.
So what is man thing? What is woman thing?
I'll explain that, because I'm also going to explain to answer Yami's question about what the prescription is. Men do men things regardless, and when men don't do men things, women don't like it, and society doesn't like it. Women do women things, and when they don't do women things, society doesn't like it, and men don't like it. It's just what it is.
What is men things?
I'm going there. So the first part is I'll go to the women things. When women start doing masculine things, they start behaving like men. They start dressing like men and doing all this kind of. Yeah, society is fine. You can be accepted by society. I'm not talking about any of the acceptance of society per se. But I am kind of, but not really. I'm saying that at the end of the day, men generally would still act a certain way around women who dress like men, who do things like men, get into masculine jobs, roles, opportunities, etc. Getting into the boss babe thing, having a business, etc. It tends to put women in the masculine. By masculine, I mean the things I stated before: assertive, dominant, very strong, driven, confident, being a leader, pushing things through, but being aggressive, all of those factors that determine how masculinity has always been. From a man's perspective, men,
I'm sorry, but can I just interject? Do you have a boss at work who is female?
I have had female bosses, yes.
Okay. Do you have a problem with that?
I mean, I've had problems with people. I have problems with people. It doesn't mean it's not about it's a woman's a man. It's like, well, what are you like is the problem I have.
Don't get cross-sacked, please.
You know what I mean? What are the characteristics? If the characteristics of the boss for that role fits, fine. It doesn't matter about the gender. And I'm not speaking about my personal experience.
But 100 years ago, you were very unlikely to have a female boss.
It's unlikely, yes, of course, but it doesn't
highly
change
unlikely.
The fact that you can have a really bad.
Do we agree that a lot has changed?
I mean,
given that you have a female boss,
100 years ago, it would have been unlikely to have black doctors in the UK. So
yes.
Again,
so do you agree that things have changed?
I mean, things have changed, but has that changed anything?
Absolutely. Thank you. Now we are aligned.
No. We're not aligned yet, because the question is, okay, now that they've changed, have they changed for better or not?
Thank you. Because that was my next question. Isn't that a good step then that you had a female boss cross?
It doesn't mean it's like saying that. Did you have a Nigerian boss or a Chad boss? It doesn't mean anything to me. It doesn't matter. I don't care. You know what I mean?
No. You understand the context in which I'm asking this question, because obviously, we once upon a time, women could not be in that position, but your boss has a family, presumably, or not. She might have been single, or she had a family. Isn't it a good thing? Let's say she had a family. Okay, she had a family. She's able to come.
She's probably leveraged technology. She probably manipulated her biology to be able to rise and be your boss.
Yes,
absolutely. That's what she's probably done.
Yeah, and she did that because that's what she wanted to do. And altogether, she did the job as well as any other person could have done, male or female, right? Is that a good thing?
Again, it depends on what we're talking about.
Well, I think it's a
We are
good
talking about toxic
Wait,
masculinity.
hang on, no, you can't ask me a question and then you not allow me to answer the question. Calm down. So, in terms of in individual perspective, I don't care what individuals do. If an individual person decides to do a thing, that is their prerogative. If you decide as a human being, I decide to go and become an astronaut, that's my business. So if somebody in this context that we're talking about masculinity,
a simple question I ask you.
No, but it's not a simple question. You're trying to trap me because you don't ask simple questions, Oga. I know you. You don't ask simple questions, so I need to make sure I'm answering all of the questions that you're asking inside the question.
So Cross is suspicious that Jab has said it.
I know Jab doesn't ask simple question. The issue is about generalities. We're talking generally. And I think it's very important to just point out anybody can be what they want.
Okay,
so
let me clarify. No,
because you've already put me inside the hole. Let me come out of the hole. You can be what you want. If you're a man, woman, cat, dog, doesn't matter. If you're a cat, you want to bark, you can bark if you like. People are going to look and say, why are you barking? A cat. Doesn't matter. You are free to do what you want in this life. 100% free to decide your own path in life. My issue is in general, when we look at society, we take a step back, we roll back and say, okay, big circle. What is it that people generally want and what do people generally respond to? Generally speaking, most women do not want to sit down and work really difficult jobs while they're raising children in a society where the expectations are that she needs to raise those kids. But feminism has said, you need to be also masculine and go and be a boss babe and work hard. Men don't want to, generally speaking, be in a situation. I get you're shaking head, don't give a shit. Men tend to not want to be in a situation where they're raising the kid, they're doing things around the house, and then at the same time, they're going out to start doing all the other things outside. There's a confusion that's happening here where we're merging all the roles.
No. So what choice gives you, Cross? What choice?
So actually, let me speak for myself.
One second, Farouk. So what empowerment gives you is the ability to choose. Now your choice is yours. So if you are able to be a pilot, but you choose to be a nurse or a social worker, the empowerment in that whole process is the ability to choose. What we have is increasingly, through manipulation of biology and social reorganization, women are they're still not as able to choose as men, but they're increasingly able to make choices for themselves. That is a good thing.
But that's a good thing. Thank you.
That's great. I'm not saying it's bad. That's great.
Okay, that's a good thing. Let me say this then in conclusion, please. I hope you don't mind if I just take over. I think that's a good thing. Look, it doesn't matter whether this person we're talking about is blue, green, Chinese, Indian, Asian, black, white, man, woman. It doesn't matter. I think that if people are able to contribute to the economy in this instance, they're able to support their family. Working is good for your mental health. It's good for it's good all round, right? I don't see why that is a problem. I think it's a good thing. I think that, to me, I will take that as a sign of progress, right? The important thing is this person competent? Are they good in this position? Are they good at what they do? If they are, I don't care whether that person is tall or short, fat or thin, man or woman. I don't care where they come from, right? Give them the job. Let them get on with the job and just do it. I don't think that is a bad thing. And I think that, yes, there are ways. Obviously, we've been stuck around this issue of toxic masculinity. I think there are ways where you will always have an abuse. There's no system that is perfect. But if you ask me, I think on the whole, this is a really good thing. And I think we've made very huge progress. It's nice to be able to go to the where I work, there are more women than men. I think there's just maybe 2 or 3 of us at work, right? The rest of the doctors are all female.
That's why you have been feminized.
but the thing is, they do the job just as well as I do. Do you know what I mean? They do the job just as well as I do. And
I mean,
in
so
fact,
I'm sorry, Jab. Did you take it? What I'm saying is that women are less than men and they're not able to do things. Is that what you took from what I said?
no,
Because I'm not saying that.
I think from what you're saying, you seem to suggest that there is something unacceptable with the idea that women should be able to, you know, be bosses at work and take up leadership, position, as well as looking after family. I think that choice is great. I
I'm
think
not
I
saying
think
that. I didn't say that
I
any
think
point of the
Jab,
conversation. Oh,
yes,
Jab, from the comment section, someone has said that Jab gives subtle jabs.
Jab has subtle jab.
Jab has subtle jabs. Well, someone has
Shout out
picked on your
Tamalosha.
someone has picked on your skills there.
okay,
I don't think Cross has gone as far as saying that women can't or shouldn't do those things. I think he's actually in denial that they are doing it.
yes,
I'm no,
yes.
I'm not. I mean, again,
it's probably even he's not gone as far as saying that they shouldn't do it. He's actually
I'm not saying
actively
anything
denying that they are doing it and that things are changing. I think
Yes.
my final thoughts is we've gone 1 hour and 25 minutes. We're talking about toxic masculinity. We've actually not touched at all on the fact that masculinity can be harmful.
It can be, yeah.
There are people, yeah, it can be harmful. The rage, the quest to control, and the reluctance to relinquish control and embrace change can
Yeah.
all come across as toxic in relationships, at home, and at work. So it can be toxic, and I think in some sense when you say toxic masculinity, it comes from there. And I have been in spaces online where there's actually express dislike or even hatred, misogyny towards women
Yeah.
and their quest to embrace opportunities and choice.
Mhm.
So I didn't want us to go through the session without acknowledging this, that it's a problem,
Yeah.
without saying we recognize it's a problem, and
Yes.
that to the panel and to everyone out there, culture necessarily changes and will continue to change.
It's inevitable.
And we are best embracing it, particularly if it empowers us. Looking at where we're coming from where women had little or no rights and opportunities for the simple reason of their biology and how societies all over the world operationalized and set themselves up. Thankfully, technology, medicines, and legislation has evolved and are catching up and are opening up the space for women to have this choice. And I think it's also positive that we recognize that this is a positive direction of flow. And to also point out that because our biology encodes in us and our experiences, preferences, as men, we generally want a submissive woman, one at home that cares. Increasingly, under financial pressure, we want a woman that works and contributes. Similarly, women will want a tough, protective fixer. This doesn't necessarily mean things are not changing. It's just evolutionary, and it's in our generational memory. In the same way that many African cultures would be scared of olds. Well, why are we scared of olds? They are just flesh and blood like anything, but and cats. So stories and memories and experiences of our ancestors, generations before, have been passed to us, and we have this visceral fear of certain things. In the same way, we have preferences as men and women. But I guess being civilized and being educated is to challenge these emotions when we sense they are wrong, when it's misogynistic, when it is toxic, and embrace and reason and rationalize and introspect on how to engage with positive attributes and characteristics. We are raising kids, talking about wanting to spend time. I've got 3 boys. I mean, if you ask me what I want more time off work to spend more time with them. If you ask me, I have that choice. I'd rather make that. It has nothing. That doesn't make me more feminine or less masculine in any way. It's just what I want to do. So that's the final take from me. Thank you, guys.
Word. You've got the last word. across?
I think for me it's been an interesting conversation. I think one, we haven't really touched on the topic because we went through a whole lot of different conversations about
It
things.
got a bit feisty.
We did, and which is what it should be because we are completely misaligned on a few different topics, which is fine.
It got interesting and feisty, yes.
Indeed. And then I'll say a couple things. That one, at no point have I said that women shouldn't do anything that they should do. I was focusing on proclivities. What do people like doing? Let them do what they like and what they're biologically wired to do. As men, we're biologically wired, generally speaking, to take care of our women and our family. We're just biological. It's just what it is. If somebody comes up to you, sat in public, and then somebody comes up to you at a table, you're just going to stand up and say, what's going on here? I need to protect them. If you're in a situation where things could negatively impact all of you, you're willing, generally speaking, doesn't mean it's everybody, and this is important, you're willing to take whatever comes with it. If you need to be broke, you need to be hungry, so your family would eat, you would do that. Generally speaking, and going back to the African tradition, we do that. It's just what it is. Now, in terms of the final, conversations about it, are people changing today? Yes. If cats are barking, is that great? Well, I don't know. Maybe. If cats start barking today, just go, you see a cat there, just expecting to meow, it starts going woof, woof. Okay, well, that's a bit strange. That's how I see it in terms of how we're looking at, the drone pilots, for example. I don't think that everybody in general, again, we have 4% of drone pilots being women. I don't think that applies to most women. Most women are not waking up in the morning and thinking at 8 years old and thinking, or most girls, sorry, at 8 years old are thinking, I want to be a drone pilot. They're not doing that.
Neither am I.
Well, exactly. But if you're more likely as a man to think about being a drone pilot than a woman, and I think that's important to just lay out. That
I disagree.
I get you disagree, but I don't really care because it's just what
I
it is.
don't want to be a drone pilot.
On that misaligned note, we have run out of time. It was very interesting. There's so many things left unaddressed, but that's why we have future episodes. I expect this will come up at some point again in the future. But just before we go, Kehinde Abu has said, true masculinity is not toxic. What's toxic is when strength is abused. Leadership becomes domination. I think that's a very good thing for us to say.
Yeah,
I agree.
Thank you guys for joining, and we will be back again.
Same time next week.
Have a good week from me.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Peace and misaligned.